We're going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on March 5th, 2025. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Thibodeau?
Here.
Alderman Govea is here. Alderman Moran?
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons?
Here.
Alderman Clements?
Here.
Alderwoman Clee?
Um,
Here. Mayor Donald?
Alderwoman Clee, I'm here, and Alderwoman Clee has got a family situation. Public comment. Is there public comment on any of the items that are on the agenda this evening? If not, we'll go on to communications. First communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Govea.
In regard to purchase of upgrade tablators in the amount of $56,000 funded from capital improvements, 81 outlay improvements. I'm gonna make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of 20 Dominion ImageCast tabulators with LHS Associates in the amount of $56,000. Funding will be through Department 107, City Clerk, Fund Capital Improvements, 81 outlay improvements.
And Mr. City Clerk is here on this.
Hi, good evening, Dan Healy, City Clerk. So my request is for the $56,000 to purchase upgraded tabulators for the use in elections. This was approved a few years ago in the capital improvements, and it's been in escrow in City Clerk for a couple of years while we were waiting for the vendor to get all their approvals from the state. They recently got those certifications. Next Tuesday, towns will be having town elections in quite a few towns throughout the state. Will be using these newer devices. The devices we have currently are approximately 30 years old. They're end of life. The vendor has indicated that they're not certain that they can even continue servicing them. We do have an annual maintenance contract with them for $325 per tabulator, and that's on 10 tabulators. The difference now is that we are looking to purchase 20 tabulators. The state, through funds that they have, are paying $70,000 or $3,500 per unit, and then the city will be responsible for the rest. The annual maintenance going forward will be $300. My goal is to have 2 tabulators at each polling location. In the past, we've had one, and I don't know what prior city clerks have done. I've heard that maybe they rented tabulators out for bigger elections. My goal would be to just have 2 tabulators always at each location. They don't necessarily both have to be in use, but if the tabulator goes down, they can just put that other one right into service. Presidential primary in January this past year, we had 2 tabulators go down at the same time, and at that time we only had 1 at each location because that's what we had, and it was, I'm running the spare over to one location, but another location still needs their tabulator up. So I think having 2 at each location and then 2 spares at the city clerk's office, I think is probably the best approach. So I submitted a lot of stuff with this request, the resolution R-23-165, which last year the Board of Aldermen approved the use of the ImageCast device for use in Nashua. I submitted an email from the elections director at the Secretary of State's office saying what the state will pay for a portion of the funding. I submitted some decisions from the Ballot Law Commission authorizing the use. So again, we have the money escrowed, just looking to now purchase. And I guess one other comment would be that I believe there's something in here on IT. For tabulators, IT is not involved at all. It's directly through the vendor LHS, so IT wouldn't be involved in any of the programming, any of the issues, any of that. That's part of the annual maintenance contract. If we have any issues on election day that I can't solve, over the phone with them, or just from past experience, we call the vendor. The vendor comes out to the location. In the past, they've brought us, an additional tabulator if that's what we needed, or they come out and they service the machine right on site. So it's nothing to do with IT, so I'm not sure if I need any approval from them, but they wouldn't be involved with anything related to the tabulators. So that's pretty much it. Is there any questions?
All right, questions, comments? Alderwoman Timmons.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I have two questions. One, when will the tabulators be in use? When will we get them if we purchase them?
So I'm not fully 100% on the process here. I was told it needs to go to Finance Committee. They are ready once we sign off on it, once I get all the approvals from the city. The vendor would be able to then deliver the tabulators. With, a good amount of the state voting next week and using this vendor, I mean, it might be delayed, a couple of weeks or what, but it would be relatively soon that we would have the tabulators. Our next election, I believe, is November 4th. It's, the first Tuesday in November. So we have some time to get them. And part of the purchase, the vendor actually comes and does a training with staff. That's included in the initial purchase. They'll come to Nashua, and all the election officials, members of the public, if they'd like, can come. They can see the tabulators, and they'll show, the moderators, the clerks, selectmen, election workers, how to use them. I've been to 2 or 3 trainings already. I've gone up to Concord when they've had the demos, and I've seen the machine. I've gone to other communities and helped with their testing when they test the ballots. So it's very similar to what we currently have, just 30 years upgraded.
Yes, of course.
To follow up, would these new tabulators separate the write-ins?
They will.
Yes, that's
So-
a really big help.
The previous tabulators had that capability, and it was you've worked in election, when you slide the tabulator onto that black box has in it what's called a diverter. That was removed years ago by a prior clerk. I don't think it was working properly or up to their standards. So when that diverter was removed, everything just went into one bucket. The newer tabulators, they don't have a diverter inside, but the actual tabulator can tell if it's a write-in, and it will actually exit the tabulator in a different spot instead of getting to that diverter, because they realized there was issues with the diverter, and you might not know that the diverter's not working in the middle of an election, then you could miss write-in. So I think that was part of the reason that the diverter was removed, and staff now is instructed that they have to look at the machine tape that prints out, and if it says 50 write-ins, they have to find 50 ballots with write-ins. So that adds time at the end of the election. The newer tabulator too also has the ability to print out a receipt of all the write-ins. So while it's scanning the ballot, you can print a receipt of the write-ins, so they could actually use that ticket too to just get their write-ins. So it has, being 30 years newer, it has all these upgraded features. And it also has 2 memory cards. So if one memory card fails, there's a backup memory card in the tabulator. And I actually just got earlier today a brochure or PDF of how the device operates that I plan to send to the clerks and moderators to kind of give them time to review it for coming up to November.
All right, any other questions, comments? Alderman Clemmons.
Just a quick comment. I just want to thank you for all your hard work in this. This is a long time coming. It'll be a great upgrade for the city, and I was pleased to see that there's matching funds from the state, because I think originally we were around 100 grand plus, right? And now the state's covering part of that.
So originally, in the CIP proposal, it was budgeted for 10 tabulators.
Okay.
So we're basically now getting, double the tabulators for actually a little bit under
Right.
what was escrowed.
Excellent.
I do want to make a comment that I am looking into pole pads, so I'm going to try to get some purchase pole pads over the next few years and do a slow rollout over a couple wards. So I will be putting that in my budget and discussing that later. But that's also with the same vendor. There'll be an annual contract, but that's another thing that will make the elections a little more efficient, where people can just go to any line. So that's in the works as well.
Great.
All right, anyone else? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to purchase of 2 Honda Prologues in the amount of $96,520 funded from SURF 81 capital outlay, I'm going to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of 2 Honda Prologues electric vehicles with all-wheel drive through Peters Honda in the amount of $96,520. That's $48,260 each. Funding will be through Department 166 Parking Fund, SURF 81 capital outlay and improvements.
Ms. Stansfield?
Hi, good evening, Jill Stansfield, Parking Manager. This purchase for the 2 new vehicles is in accordance with the SURF schedule for our parking enforcement vehicles. We've done a lot of research on the appropriate type of vehicle. The 2 Fusions that we have are not all-wheel drive, so it's been very limiting for us during any sort of weather events to respond in certain areas of the city due to the obvious hills and whatnot. So that is one of our big changes here. The warranty that does come with these 2 vehicles, it's a 3-year, 36,000 mile comprehensive warranty, 8-year, 100-mile warranty on the battery pack. The all-wheel drive, again, will give us the capability of responding to complaints and concerns across the city during any sort of snow and other type of weather events. Additionally, it's in compliance with our city's electric vehicle initiatives. And our fleet manager for the city has supported this, and along with our city treasurer. The amount for these vehicles is over the 10% threshold, but the money for this purchase is available in the SURF fund.
Anyone? Alderman Govea.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, and I do struggle with this due to the price. I mean, when looking at our SURF, we budgeted for 2 cars at $40,875. We're spending an extra 8 and change for this. I mean, that's kind of pricey at this point, and where we're looking at with SURF, I mean, it is concerning to me that this is that much over.
If I may. So I completely agree with that. That's why we did a lot of legwork on this. It was tricky to find a vehicle that would have the all-wheel drive feature. The 2 Fusions that we have, we've made them work, but it has been very difficult. So we did a lot of research on kind of the best option price-wise, and this was a lower of all the other types of SUVs that are out there. It also is conducive to our operations, the inside of it. We did look at another vehicle. We looked at the Chevy Equinox EV, and that was a little bit more expensive, and the interior for our equipment and stuff was not as conducive to operations either. So that was another benefit to this vehicle. But I am completely in agreement with, it was a struggle for me as well. But it is something that we did a lot of research on, and it does seem to be a good fit for our operation. There is also, I'm not sure how this part works, but there is a $7,500 rebate that is hopefully still going to be available. And I think that process is handled by our finance department. So yeah, we're hoping that that is still available to come back to the city for each of the vehicles.
Yes.
Follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, guess I'm looking at this. What do we have prices of what they were if they weren't EV?
So the Honda Prologue is a new vehicle altogether.
So those are
It's-
exclusively
It's
EVs?
Honda's
Okay.
EV vehicle.
If I can.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there anything comparative that is an EV?
So we did look at Chevy's Equinox, and that was several $1,000s more.
Okay.
Alderman Clemmons.
So the price here does not include the 7,500 rebate?
No, it doesn't. I believe that is a process that's handled during the tax time. I'm not sure exactly how that process works, but it's a,
Well, yeah. Sometimes the dealer can take that off the top. In other words, you assign that tax rebate to like Peter, in this case, Peter's Honda. I don't know if that was discussed at all. I guess my point is if either way, that effectively would bring down the cost in line with the surf schedule, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if it was 75 each a car, that would be under. Because I believe right now it's 73.85 over. So yeah, if you were to get that 75 each, yeah, I think you would be in that ballpark.
I did,
Oh, what's-
sorry.
No, you're.
I did ask that question, and they said it would be a process that we would have to take care of on our end.
Okay.
I did see on TV, the average vehicle now costs $48,000. I mean, it's like ridiculous. Anyway, anyone else? Alderman Clemmons.
Just curious, what are we doing with the replacement?
Great question. Yes, so we are going to hang on to those. I have worked very hard over the last 5 years to continue to maintain those two vehicles. We do have the need in our department and our division specifically to have a city vehicle available. I personally have put a lot of mileage on my own vehicle, and I do not expense it, and that's my choice. But it would be nice to be able to utilize a city vehicle as I do use it, my own every day.
Okay, great.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So are we positive about this rebate? I mean, I don't see it anywhere in our packet. I just want to make sure if we go ahead and do this, that rebates money's there, because this does throw the surf out of whack a little bit. And, I mean, if there's a way to recoup that money, I would definitely be for it, but, because it seems like this vehicle is a good fit, but I just want to make sure we have assurances that when we're closing the books, that money does come back.
Yes, so unfortunately, I think there's a lot of things up in the air currently.
Of course.
With any sort of money towards electric vehicle purchases. I know our sustainability manager is here tonight. I don't know if she can speak to that at all, but.
Hi, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager. There is a program now that is through the IRS. It's called Elective Pay, and it allows municipalities and nonprofits to take advantage of tax credits that they normally can't take advantage of because they don't necessarily pay taxes. And so we are looking very closely at that right now with Don and John down in Finance Department to be able to recoup some of those costs. We have as you know, we have a list of electric vehicles that we put in service last year, and so we're looking now during this tax season to see what we can do about getting those the $7,500 back for each. So you know, happy to keep you posted on how that works. We haven't actually done it yet. It's a fairly comprehensive program to go through that nobody's done before. So we're treading lightly, and as Jill said, we're hopeful that that program will stay in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alderman Thibodeau.
I'm curious, at budget time, where the 81,750 came from. Is it just the increase of the cost of this particular vehicle over the course of a year? So what was done to come up with that original figure for last year's, when we did budgeting?
Which figure are you referring to?
So it says it's over the original, and the surf was 81,750,
Yes, yep.
and now you're looking for 96,520. So I'm just curious, the 81,750, where that figure came from for the budget.
I'm still confused on which figure.
So
you're-
the number in the surf schedule is 81 something.
Okay.
In other words, a little over 40.
Right.
Nearly 41,000 each. And now it's, where did we come up with that number is the question.
Oh, great question. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. The vehicles that we had previously were much lower in cost. They were four-door sedan Ford Fusions. So I believe the SURF is based on those original purchase price for those vehicles. And so this was one of the SUV options where we would be able to have you all-wheel drive for our enforcement folks. And this was the price that it came in at. So it's just, I guess, slightly over what, a sedan cost would be.
Gotcha. I guess it's more of a procedural thing, but.
Well, I think what they do is they look at what the existing vehicle is and they try to price that.
The
But
one
now,
that's getting ready to be replaced?
Yes.
yeah, now, and that's how they come up with the SURF price. What Ms. Stansfield is saying is that the Ford Fusion, because it's not an all-wheel drive, doesn't really work that well for them.
Yep. Thank you, thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, I'm going to support this because I think, I think regardless of whether or not we get the rebates, I think this is going to be a good purchase for the parking department, especially considering the fact that we do have hills, we do have weather. We want a car that, is going to last a long time, and the 8-year, 100,000 mile on the battery, I think is a great warranty. We have the dealership local. I think this is a good move in this particular case.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this question might be to you, actually. Is there a way procedurally, when these rebates come in, that money be allocated to the SURF instead of just sitting in the general fund? Because if it's going straight back in there, then I see that as a kind of
we
an
could
even
do
trade.
that. I mean, if it requires an action by the alderman, we just propose it. I don't know that it would, but we can check that out. The maintenance on these is less. I mean, so there is some other savings over the period of time, but that's not upfront.
Sure, okay. So I will,
And we will investigate whether we can put this into SURF. If not, we can propose a resolution.
yeah, okay. Then I will, I'll go along with this and support it. As long as we're kind of all on at least an unofficial page of making sure this money goes into the SURF.
All right, before you leave though, and before we vote, I happen to be in Ward 6, and we have our Ward 6 alderman here. Just before I came here, there's a convenience store on Pine Street. I stopped in there, and a gentleman stopped me and said that there's a car that parks on Gilman Street, right very next to the stop sign at Pine. And he asked that parking check that out and ticket that vehicle for a clear violation. And I said, I'd be glad to talk to you, and since you're here, since the alderman from Ward 6 is here as well, so he knows about the problem now, maybe he can kind of check it out too. Would you please look into that?
Yes, we certainly will.
All right, so I believe we're prepared for the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is a communication from Amy Druid, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Govea.
In regard to personal protective equipment in the amount not to exceed $65,000, funded from General Fund 61, Supplies and Materials, I'm going to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase for 17 sets of personal protective equipment, PPE, with Bergeron protective clothing in the amount not to exceed $65,000. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, General Fund 61, Supplies and Materials.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Adam Pliot, Assistant Fire Chief, Nashua Fire. So these are 17 sets of the ensembles that we wear during fire suppression activities. It's the coat, the pants, the boots that we wear during firefighting and other emergency scenes like car accidents. This is an annual expense for us. We replace a percentage of this every year based on age, and this year we're up for 17 sets.
All right. Anyone? Alderman Thibodeau.
I think I had the same question last year. This does not include helmets. Is it, what's the?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the helmets have a slightly longer life expectancy
Okay.
than the skier. So it's coats, pants, and boots.
Yeah, I'll let it
Alderman Gobea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems like every time we're buying equipment, I go on the soapbox for a little bit, but just so we're aware, this is cancer-causing PFAS-contaminated uniforms that we still have not caught up to really the technology yet of how we can get the PFAS out of these gear. And, I mean, it is a staggering amount with cancer rates in the fire service, and a lot of it is due to just the uniforms they put on. And still knowingly doing that day after day is incredible. So first off, thank you, and hopefully soon we'll be able to be purchasing PFAS-free equipment.
Yeah, I know that technology, they're working on it, and just for everybody's information, the PFAS that's in the gear is impregnated in the fabric. It's what helps make it somewhat water resistant. Absolutely, it's carcinogenic. We've been finding that out. They are working on technology to make PFAS-free gear. There's a couple of gear manufacturers that have made some, and it is so far not receiving great reviews, does not hold up well. So we're hopeful that in the near future, better stuff will come out and we can switch to that. But in the meantime,
Hopefully they can find something, but in the interim, I think the cancer screenings began this week?
Started in February,
Yeah.
correct, for all of our members.
And I believe we're the only department that does that universally, in New Hampshire at least, aren't we?
So the city does theirs, yes, but we passed, or the legislature passed legislation last year which will do cancer screening for all active and retired members, and that should be starting hopefully this summer. I know they just went through the RFP process or in the process of selecting the vendors.
All right, well, good, at least we're
Yes.
doing what we can, right?
Yeah, no, we're doing well. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is a communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Gouveia.
In regard to Jackson Fall Hydropower interconnect with Eversource in the amount of $58,750 funded from Hydropower Reserve Fund 81 Capital Outlay Improvements, I'm going to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for electrical work and connection of the facility to the electrical grid for the Jackson Mills Hydropower facility with Eversource for the initial deposit amount of $58,750. Funding will be through Department 170 Hydroelectric Operations Fund, Hydropower Reserve Fund, 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements.
Ms. Chisholm, I believe, is here.
Hi, good evening, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager. This item here is an additional cost that we were not really aware of until about a month ago when we started in earnest negotiating with Eversource. As part of your packet, we had included a copy of the interconnection agreement, the draft version, which we have since modified and sent back to Eversource that they will hopefully incorporate our comments in. But this cost, what we're doing here is the $58,750 is the initial deposit that they're allowing us to put down so that they will continue doing their feasibility study work on what it will actually take to connect that Jackson Mills hydro. We've replaced all of the equipment, and now the part that we're working on now is, in my 30,000-foot non-electrical view, is plugging it all in. So the first that we had heard when they had sent us the agreement was the $350,000 interconnection cost. And while we had been planning on spending a fairly considerable amount of money on that, $350 was it was a bit of a shock for us. Once we had received that agreement, we had an in-person meeting with Eversource and the rest of the hydro team, which the meeting went great, but then it was also revealed that there was a potential for another $150,000 of costs associated with the project, which came a little bit out of left field as far as we were concerned. So I'm here today to ask simply for the deposit amount so that we can get that over to Eversource as quickly as possible. And then we'll have a bake sale up front, I guess. We're going to be looking for additional funding at some point to cover the rest of that 350.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Can any of that funding, can any of that cost be paid for with the funding that we are charging for the electric rate on the, for the Nashua Community Power?
The reserve.
The reserve, can we use that for this?
I don't know.
If I may.
You know what we're talking about, right? The Community Power Reserve is
Right,
what
we
we're
have
talking
we have what we refer to as the adder fund, that, at this point, I'm not exactly sure how much. I think the last time that Ms. Brown had come in front of you, I want to say it was probably $140,000 was the total amount of that. It was not our original intention to spend those funds on hydro. We're in the process of getting an energy coaching program up to speed and using those funds. And at this point, we have not received those funds into the city coffers. They're still in with CPCNH, Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, still has that in their account.
But it might be an eligible cost. I mean, I'm not sure. There's some definition to how it can be used, and I'm not sure if it would cover this or not.
Okay, I guess my only comment would be to try to look into that, at least to defray some of the cost, because ultimately, what we're trying to do here is lower the electric bill for everybody, right? So if people are paying a premium on their electricity for that cost, this would be something that would help them, I would think, so.
So can you check that out?
I will certainly look into that, yep.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So based on what I'm hearing from you, in this situation, we really don't have a choice. Like, we kind of have to do this. We can't really pass that power to anybody else, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of have us over the barrel because if we're generating electricity, or we can, but if we want to get any revenue, we have to connect, and this is what they say it costs.
Right. We're at a situation right now where we need to connect to the grid in order to actually do testing of the equipment itself. So we are working with Eversource to negotiate an earlier start date than what they had originally anticipated, so that we can get that equipment up and running.
Alderman Govea.
In these costs that are, I mean, a $58,000 just deposit, and you were saying upwards of $300,000, correct, in total?
The original amount that they had provided us, and it's in the interconnection agreement that was in your packet, is $350,000, and an additional $150,000 was presented to us on a slide deck in a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago.
Do we know where this money is, where this number's coming from, and is there tremendous labor on the Eversource side to get this going, or is this just a revenue source for them?
I don't have a lot of details. I don't have a breakdown, if you
Sure.
will, of what that $350,000 entails. But there is work that needs to be done. There is equipment that needs to be purchased. And the equipment is expensive. I mean, we're talking, if we have to go out and buy a recloser, it might cost us, $70,000 to purchase one. We've got to put up utility poles and, wires that need to be connected. And that work is done by contractors that Eversource will hire on, so.
Okay, and then one more if I can, Mr.
Yeah, yeah.
Mayor.
Go
So
ahead.
now looking at the project at a 10,000 foot level, how far would you say we are away from seeing revenue coming in to the city?
We have suggested to Eversource, and it was agreed to at the meeting, that we could connect to the grid in an interim temporary basis so that we could get up and running. So we are hopeful to actually be up and running and generating power this spring. The original schedule that was provided in the interconnection agreement by Eversource had basically said next spring, and we were like, oh, no. We can't go a whole year of just waiting with no revenue coming in from that source.
seems like we've been at this a long time. It'll be good to see some revenue coming in.
Alderman Clemmons.
Can you explain what that means in the interim?
We had, what we had originally was we have where the switchgear building is, which is right near where the dumpster and the blue and orange fence at Margarita's. Behind there is where the magic happens. And that connection is an underground, under parking lot connection to two of the poles that are in the parking lot.
Okay.
And we have been told that that connection is no longer viable from a standpoint that Eversource has another project that they're working on, and they want us to connect to that project. That's where I think the time frame gets a little extended, and so we have suggested to them that we will connect using the existing underground connection that we used prior to installing new equipment. We'll use that temporarily so that we can get up and running, and then once Eversource is ready with their project, then we'll make that switch from the interim to the permanent.
Silence.
Yeah, I could say a lot, but it wouldn't be appropriate for television, so I will leave
Same.
that. But needless to say, that is extremely disappointing from the point of, you know, we're all in the same game here. Eversource should be happy that there is a new electric source coming online, and they should be working with us instead of against us to try to get that online, because we are facing a power crisis in New England, and so to get something else online is beneficial to them. So it is frustrating to know that there is a connection that's already there that could be used, that they're going to allow us to use, but then they're going to make us spend all this money on top of that. I find that frustrating. So that was the clean version.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else have any other clean remarks to make?
Don't look this way.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Gobea.
In regard to 2025 CIPP lining of sewer interceptors in the amount of $1,096,446.07. Funding will be through Bond 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements. I'm going to make a motion to accept, place on file, and award a construction contract for 2025 CIPP lining of sewer interceptors with Institution Form Technologies LLC in the amount of $1,096,446.07. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund Bond 81 Capital Outlay Improvements.
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name's Amy Prouty-Gill. I'm a senior staff engineer, and I'm representing City Engineer Dan Hudson this evening because he's under the weather. So I'm just here to talk about the contract. This is continued inspection of the sewers that have been going on for several years using CCTV inspection. This contract is for large pipes and sewer interceptors that were identified using the closed-circuit television inspection that are in need of lining, some type of rehab. These pipes are the ones that carry a large amount of flows. So in addition to the lining, other things that need to be done during the process is bypassing the flow. Some of the pipes are in cross-country areas where access to the manholes needs to be accessed, and also traffic management. Some of them are arterial streets. So 3 bids were received, and the low bidder was In Situ Form Technologies of Chesterfield, Missouri.
All right, anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to 2025 CIPP main lining in the amount of $3,138,780.50 funded from Bond 81 Capital Outlay Improvements. I'll make a motion to accept, place on file, and award a construction contract for 2025 CIPP sewer main lining to National Water Main Cleaning Corporation in the amount of $3,138,000. Yeah, $780.50. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Bond 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements.
Go ahead.
Amy Proudy-Gill, again representing Dan Hudson. This contract is another lining contract. These are for the sewer mains in the city. Through the years, we've been doing investigation with CCTV inspection again of the sewers throughout the city. This is a large volume of sewers, 66,000 linear feet, but these pipes are much smaller. The majority of pipes are between 8 and 12 inches in diameter, and they are generally run in residential streets, so they're very easy access from manhole to manhole. 4 bids were received for this contract, with National Water Main Cleaning Company of Canton, Mass. Being the qualified low bidder, and we've worked with them as well in the city and other projects successfully.
Okay. Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. I don't know, you here on the next one too?
I am.
All right. Next communication, from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to building demolition of 7 Hillcrest Ave in the amount of $39,250, funded from Bond 81 Capital Outlay Improvements. I'll make a motion to accept, place on file, and award a contract for 7 Hillcrest Avenue building demolition project to S&R Corporation in the amount of $39,250. Funding will be through Department 160 Admin Engineering, Fund Bond 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements.
Go ahead.
Amy Proudy-Gill with the Engineering Department, representing Dan Hudson. This is one of the closeout activities remaining for the Veterans Memorial Parkway, formerly known as Broad Street Parkway. This is parcel land that was purchased for that project, and it's one that has an existing house remaining on the parcel. There's an issue with the slope stabilization based on the steepness of the slope. That's a result of the parkway. And it's been determined based on investigation that it needs to be, the house should be demolished, raised, and then it will be backfill the site and grading, surface restoration with loam and seed.
Alderman Clemmons.
Is the house currently vacant?
I believe it is vacant.
I think it is, yeah.
So there's no
It's
one
not
living-
really safe to live in there.
But there is no one
No.
officially living
No.
there? Okay.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was trying to fill myself in on the backstory of how this all came to light. Was this done, did we purchase this when we were building the
Yes.
parkway?
Yes.
Okay, and the plan was always to just demolish it and then,
I don't know what the plan always was, but the Hillcrest is a little street, kind of like a little, it's not even a full oval, but a little curving street that saw a Fairmount just, what would that be, west of the Fairmount Bridge, Fairmount Street Bridge that goes over the parkway. Anyway, when they built and this is right on the edge, and when they built this parkway, the slope, they did a lot of excavation, and it came very close, and it undermined this house. And so it's really not habitable anymore.
okay.
I don't know if it was anticipated that it would do that, but it did. So there you go.
So
Right,
at one point, we purchased this
Yeah,
during that
yeah.
process? Okay,
right.
okay.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next communication is Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to 2025 CIPP linings of sewer interceptor construction administration in the amount of $199,387, funded from Bond 53 Professional and Technical Services, I'll make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve a construction administration contract for the 2025 CIPP lining of sewer interceptors with Hazen and Sawyer PC in the amount of $199,387. $139,387. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund, bond 53, professional and technical services.
Ms. Gill?
Amy Prouty-Gill for Dan Hudson. This is the engineering services for that first contract for the large sewer interceptor lining project. Hazen was a engineering company that did the design and the original CCTV inspection as well of the interceptors. They'll be hired to oversee the project during construction, be on-site eyes, and do construction coordination and review shop drawings.
Anyone? Alderman Govea?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always kind of struggle with when we're talking about administrative contracts. Is there, I guess the real question that I usually ask is, so this wouldn't be able to be handled and managed in-house?
These are the large pipes. These are the large pipe with the interceptors, which require the bypass pumping of large flows and the access and management of the on-site activities for the contractor. It's also in several locations along the, near the Merrimack River, next to the railroad tracks, and in some of the busy streets. So we generally do the CCT inspection of sewer mains, easier size pipe. We've done that throughout several years. With these large interceptor contracts, we need additional help. We don't just have the staff to be out there all the time or the knowledge, yeah.
Okay.
These pipes range in size up to 30, 36 inches. And again, they're the interceptors that convey the large amount of flows to the treatment plant.
Just one follow-up. Scheduling wise, how often do we do something like this with the large pipes? Because it seems like the large pipes are kind of more of the hassle than the smaller ones that seem more able to do it in-house kind of thing.
So the pipes that we're addressing now are mixed up, are a couple different construction periods. The one that we're doing, they're also long segments. Where the sewer main projects, we usually hop from pipe to pipe around the city. These are long segments with an interceptor. When they did the CCT investigation, they noticed that the interior of these pipes that were constructed in the early 60s, at the time when the Clean Water Act came through and stopped the city from discharging sewage directly to the rivers, so they're all long that runs. It appears that hydrogen sulfide, due to stagnant material and gases in the pipes, has caused the interior of the pipe to deteriorate. So this is really just the start of doing these large interceptor projects. A lot of them were built in late 60s. We do have a couple that were in 59 that were clay material that we've inspected, and they've been in good shape. So this is still ongoing in the beginning of looking at the interceptors.
So this is the first time since we've built them that we've been inspecting them like this?
That I'm aware of, and I've been here a while.
Okay.
Yeah,
So long overdue.
yeah. We very aggressively started a CCT inspection program of the city around 2018 due to increase in funding for the sewer program, so.
Thank
And
you.
we've been very successful, you know. Some good pipes, some bad pipes.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to wastewater engineering services, amendment number 1, on-call engineering services in the amount of $100,000 annually, funded from wastewater fund 53, professional and technical services. I'm gonna make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve amendment 1 to the on-call engineering service contract with Wright Pierce in the amount of $100,000 annually. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund 53, professional and technical services.
Mr. Boucher?
Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. So this is for the use of Wright Pierce Engineering for on-call services. Some of the services that we'd want them to provide if we ever had a major equipment failure at the wastewater plant, 24/7, we'd be able to call them, they'd be able to respond to that. Also providing technical assistance with resolving process issues. We also have many permits. Oftentimes they're up for renewal. We have one right now, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems permit. It's our permit that allows us to discharge into the river. That's up for renewal this year, so we went through a public comment period. These things are time sensitive. When we receive it back from the EPA, there's a time period to respond back. If there's any appeals that need to be done, they'd also be assisting and stuff like that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Thibodeau.
I am getting older in my days, so this sounds like something we just recently talked about.
That's correct.
Okay, and that was just the initial bringing it forward.
Yeah, that was correct. That we did a request for qualifications for different engineering firms. We brought them in, we interviewed them, and we chose Wright Pierce for a 3-year contract, just to utilize them for the next 3 years.
Okay.
So this is just to establish the accountant that we use for them.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to drywall valve upgrade change order number 3 in the amount of $43,950.79 funded from wastewater fund 81 capital outlay improvements. I'm going to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve change order number 3 to the drywall upgrade contract for modifications to the wash press discharge chute in layout with Northeast Earth Mechanical LLC in the amount of $43,950.79. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund 81 Capital Outlay Improvements.
Thank you. Dave Boucher, Wastewater Superintendent. The dry well upgrade project is a major project we have going on at the wastewater plant. Mainly it entails, we have sewer piping, large sewer piping that conveys the water from the sewer interceptors up to our processes. It also contains large valves that have to be replaced. When this occurs, we have to bypass the entire flow around our facility to our processes through our wet weather facility. This change order is for unforeseen circumstances that occurred during the project. Some of the things that are on here is repositioning of some of the pipes that were being installed. We had an abatement of the paint of the existing piping. They have to cut the piping to remove it out of the building. When they started cutting, the existing paint started creating some toxic fumes. They discovered that through some air testing, so they had to remove the paint wherever they were going to cut. The additional welding on some of the newer pipe to put some additional support brackets. We had a temporary reassembly of the wash press chutes in our main building, and also include some additional painting involved with the project. I'd be happy to answer some questions.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
The next item is an emergency PO request that I issued. We'll accept this and place it on file, but the explanation is we ran out of salt and they needed salt badly. The circumstances are a little more detailed, but so we had to get the salt to take care of the streets. All right. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, which is just a withdrawal, right? So you don't really, you need that to be a motion, or you just note it, or?
So we have to accept the communication from Deb
Okay.
Chisholm, Sustainability Manager, about the withdrawal of Finance Memo 25116, change order 1 to Jackson Mill Turbine Generator and Control Replacement.
All right, Alderman Govea has made that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
So now we'll move to, actually,
Now we have,
New
the police
businesses.
department is here for a non-public, right? Karen, Ms. Smith? And there are two versions of this agenda, and I'm looking at the wrong one. Let's
so
see
we
what
have
got.
to remove that. We accepted the Deb Chisholm communication. We now have to remove that from the table and then dispose of that, dispose of
Oh, I see.
the
Okay.
communication.
All right, well, new business, we have none. Resolutions, new business resolutions and ordinances, we have none. So now we're on tabled in committee. Alderman Govea.
So I will make a motion to remove from the table memo 25-116.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And now Alderman Govea.
I will make a motion to withdraw finance memo 25-116 relative to change order number 1 for the Jackson Mill turbine generators and control replacement in the amount of $25,000.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we have the non-public, right?
Record of expenditures.
Oh, okay, all right. Record of expenditures. Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Finance Committee has compiled with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period of February 14, 2025 to February 27, 2025.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
So we're going to, we do it after the remarks by Alderman. We'll go into the non-public.
All right. All right. General discussion. Any general discussion? No. Public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the Finance Committee?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. As most of you know, there's a hearing of the Ethics Review Committee next Thursday to talk about the payment of the legal expenses for the defamation lawsuit between myself and Mr. Moran. And I wanted to bring to the attention of the board what I viewed as some disturbing communications that happened the day before and after a mediation took place on February 21st, which is not open for any discussion, but the mediation was, the ADR was submitted to the court, the resolution, and it did not settle, which is fine. You know, I came to this board and addressed my concerns with paying those legal fees for a number of reasons, and the board could have taken action to address it without going to an Ethics Review Committee hearing, which they voted 5-0 to do. I would have preferred that not be the case, but I'm disturbed that no one as an alderman, 15 people, would say to the mayor, let's have a discussion on this, who we indemnify, what we cover, and what we do. Because, you know, Mr. Moran came out after that mediation swinging on social media. I missed it because I wasn't paying attention, but then the emails came to me. And I'm not certain what fired him up, but he went right after Laura Calhoun and said that when she made the comment that she had filed a complaint with the OPLC and that it was dismissed, she didn't win. He went right after her and said that, you know, be advised, retain your records, you're being sued. And then he went on to say to another lady, Debbie, this is going to be another Mike Giltile case. Claimants will be low-level people, the ones who will struggle with legal fees and the cost of the many pleadings and claims that we will bring, using the same strategies the Fed use when they pursue claims against organized crime-type people.
1 minute.
People need to know that this is a coordinated effort. That's not right. He then goes on a Trish Clee Facebook page and says he's going to go after all the lieutenants of Ortolano, and that there's 15 people he named. This complaint was filed as a complaint to the OPLC complaint website. It was logged by the city in a spreadsheet in a public meeting that Mr. Moran sat in as a complaint against Mr. Moran's professional license. Nowhere did Mr. Moran last year say, hey, this isn't a complaint, you're hurting my business. Nowhere. And then he says, let's see if the rich lady's going to pay their fees. Well, the rich lady isn't paying anyone's fees. What is the limit to which the city pays this stuff? Then a week later, he goes on and attacks an alderman on her business for not being professional enough, gives her a 1-star rating, and trashes her. What kind of, if I did this with my
That's
lawyer,
time.
I wouldn't have a case anymore.
3 minutes, thank you. All right, remarks by Alderman. Any remarks by Alderman? Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to extend my apologies to members of the public on Monday. We had a conversation about Kratom, and I misheard what a member of the public had asked me. I had thought they were asking me if I drank kava or Kratom, And I said, no, I don't drink. But when I reviewed the tape, it sounded like I was responding to that I don't drink alcohol. I, in fact, do drink alcohol. And I just
I can
didn't.
testify to that.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
And
That's a
so
joke.
I
That is
just
a
wanted
joke.
to make sure that I didn't, when I rewatched the tape, I realized that was not the question being asked of me. I just wanted to be very clear with the public. And, you know, my personal life won't come into this chamber, so no one has to worry about that.
All right, thank you. Possible non-public session. We do have a non-public session, correct? Yes?
Do I have a motion?
Yes. Alderman Govea.
I move that the Finance Committee go into non-public session by roll call pursuant to RSA 91A3 2D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease or of rental of real or personal property, which is discussed in public would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community.
All right, so we need to clear the room, but for Ms. Smith from the Police Department.
So I need a second on this too.
Oh, second.
Second, and we need a roll call, right? Okay, could you please call the roll?
Alderman Moran,
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau,
Yes.
Alderman Govea is a yes. Mayor Donches,
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
All right, so
And,
we'll clear the
just,
room.
Do we
but-
ha-
What?
have to turn off Zoom as well?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
need to make sure the TV's off.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Let's do the-